here once again with my man Stephen Lee.
What up?
And Jorge Mendoza. And we are just continue to picking back up with the the tension that we had last week. We've been doing it. Steve, just to kind of recap, I mean, let's see. I know you don't have notes in front of you, but
I do have notes.
Oh, you do have notes,
Yeah.
but can you recap the first three that we've hit so far?
What we just did? I thought it's the fourth. This is the fourth total one.
This is the fourth total one.
Well, here's the deal. Here's what I did. So my notes are here, but I have my my notes on my phone right here. So you want me to go through all?
Really, I'm just really trying to see the effectiveness of just communication. You know, a lot of times, everybody's gonna always say good sermons. Yeah, this is the pop quiz. Like you're talking about these things. I just want to know: are you really like embodying these things? Are these things that are just kind of in one ear out the other?
Okay, here's what I'll do it off memory. All right, so the first one was the priority of prayer. So I like peas. What happened? Oh, okay. So not go over here. So the first was prayer. I think the second one was the reliance on grace, and then third we just talked about run to the tension. Those are the three. And then our first one was we did an introduction where we talked a little bit about in our heart while we're doing the podcast what we're excited about.
We didn't ask you to go over the podcast things. We want to know.
Are you talking about that podcast?
I'm trying to say, are you a part of are you embodying the stuff that we're talking about?
You talking about that podcast?
Yeah,
that's my wife. I'm here. I'm a bridge. I'm here in Atlanta, man.
Yeah, we've been trying to just make sure. So so we've talked about relying on the power of prayer. He's a sovereign king. Sovereign king. That we need to basically understand the idea of God's grace that we need to experience fully. Okay. God's grace. And then now, last week, we talked about running to the tension of injustice. Running to the tension of injustice. But now, not only do we need to run to the tension of injustice, we got to run into that tension with a heart for reconciliation. Okay. Right? Comes from verse 12. And again, for those listeners who are just joining us, we've been walking through the book of Philemon. So we're just not kind of pulling these principles. That's why I wanted to know, is this in you? Because this is biblical. These are biblical things.
Well, here's the thing. What I was encouraged by, I think even last time on the last podcast, is just knowing that for the situations that we face in culture, that God's word speaks to it. You know? And I think that's the encouragement, I think, throughout this entire kind of podcast series is that we have the answers. We have the answers, but we just got to do the work to figure out what it looks like in our context.
That's good. Jorge, what kind of grade would you have given Steve based upon?
Well, I didn't know we were doing pop quiz.
I'm doing a strong B.
Yeah, strong B.
There we go. He's a good grader.
He's a good grader. Yeah,
grader.
He graded that on the curve. Yeah. Because I'd give you like a C minus.
Well, where's your UNT transcript?
Hey, it's somewhere.
Where's that at? Somewhere.
You know what's interesting? That they don't ever ask you for your grade. I mean, like it's either you have a certificate, a graduate certificate, or not. No one asks you whether. Nobody asks you your GPA.
I'd like to see yours though. Maybe
you'd like to see
podcast.
Man, I was almost summa cum laude.
Yeah.
No, seriously.
You were thank you, Lord.
Yeah, I was thank you,
Lord.
My wife was summa cum laude. I was thank you, Lord. I was like, thank you. Thank you, Lord, for getting me through this. I was that dude that loved school, but I didn't love the work. Yeah. I just love hanging and kicking it with my boys.
Playing football.
Yeah,
with them huge pads.
Yeah,
those huge football pads I saw. It was somebody posted a picture of you on Facebook, and it was. I mean, the pads were like, why were pads so big back in the day, like football pads?
Man, because we don't want to get hurt, man. We was doing some real hitting.
Do you like the smaller?
Nowadays,
they took out smaller pads now?
No, because they took out all the rules. So it's we might as well play flag football out there. You know what I'm saying? They ain't real tackle football. No, you can't hit no one. You can't. So back in the days, you needed pads. We might as well go back to the leather helmets. You know what I'm saying? Like rugby, rugby with a pig skin. Let's just go back to that.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, I mean we don't need. I mean, we live in this a culture now, man.
Yeah, that's
you breathe on the quarterback. It's kind of like
it's the Tom Brady rules. I mean, that's kind of the thing now where if you. Yeah.
Well. So I'm running into that tension of injustice.
You got to run to it.
That's injustice in the NFL right now.
I'm upset.
Yeah. So I mean, we talk about this idea of running to the tension of injustice, but running with a heart for reconciliation. It comes from verse 12. Again, it's the Christian Standard Bible that we're using. It says this: I am sending him back to you. And I'm just going to stop there. 12a and 12a. I am sending him back. And this is Paul talking about sending Philemon or Onesimus back to Philemon. So And I think that's an important thing, because Paul is basically, he ran to the tension of injustice because Onesimus was a runaway slave, but he ran with a heart for reconciliation. He goes on in the letter and says, man, I could have, I could have kept him here. I could have done a lot of different things. So he said, but I am sending him back for a very specific purpose, because he wants him to be received, not as a slave, but he wanted him to be received as a brother. And I think it's interesting, especially as we talk about kind of reconciliation or, running to the tension, because some people will run to the tension, they have no problem. I call it the keep it real people.
Oh yeah.
I just like to keep it real.
Tell it like it is.
I'm just going to tell it like it is.
That's good.
Have you noticed that every time the keep it real people always, like, it's always the negative side of your real? Like,
let me just keep it real.
Yeah, I'm just going to keep it real. I can hurt you anytime I want to.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to keep it real.
Yeah.
To get
Like,
out of jail free card.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I'm just going to keep it real. Like, we always got those people, the keep it real people. But then, some people run to the tension, not necessarily to keep it real, but some people run to the tension just to appease their guilt.
Yeah.
It's those people like after, I'm so sorry that happened to, it's kind of like, and they feel kind of this sorry. And then literally we had someone come and they literally felt guilty that Trump was elected.
Wow.
There was this like apologizing.
Yeah.
And I was just like, you don't even know who I voted for.
Yeah.
So it's like, the assumption was that I didn't vote for Trump, which I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't vote for either one of them. I went third party.
Yeah.
But the assumption is that I didn't vote for Trump, but it is coming. This is like, you can tell that this was trying to appease their guilt.
Yeah.
In many ways. Yeah. And so either we got the Keep It Real party, we got the guilt-free group. I don't want to be guilty of it. But I really think an advocate, we talk about the difference between an agitator and an advocate runs to the tension with the heart for reconciliation, right? And so in reconciliation, like we said before, is that you can't have true reconciliation without dealing with the tension, without dealing with the justice, right? And so we have to deal with the real issues, the real problems, really where people are, and so that we can really give ourselves back to one another, right? And so, I mean, what do you guys see as the kind of the distinction between running to the tension but not running with the heart for reconciliation? And how many times we address this, in the church.
Yeah, man, a lot of times I have to, I think, kind of check myself, even kind of motives, social media. I'm not a person that typically that just enjoys an argument for argument's sake, but I realize that there's just people out there that their whole hope in posting what they post is really just it's kind of inflammatory. I mean, it's a microphone. It's not with the desire for reconciliation. It's really not the desire to understand, to empathize, and so that's why I love the distinction of that we're kind of making of advocate. I think the hope is reconciliation. I think the hope is even if the person that we're thinking about is on a negative 10, that they're going from a negative 10 to a negative 8. I think in terms of understanding that we can have a civil conversation, understand that we have differences, understand that we see the world in a particular way, and to say that my hope in this is that we would appreciate and love one another in a greater sense. So I think what times perplexes me is that, man, how at times there are people that are so not concerned with growth on either side. They're just the grenade throwers.
They play this advocate, devil's advocate. Yeah. What about the people who say, well, what if the party's not asking for forgiveness? What if that's like, so how can I pursue reconciliation when they're not even asking for forgiveness because they haven't even acknowledged they're wrong?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, Jorge, what do you think about?
That's a good question. I'm glad I don't. Jorge, what do you think? I don't want to answer that.
I think one, the Bible acknowledges the reality of that things aren't going to be perfect. The book of Hebrews tells us, as much as lies within you, live at peace with all men. Yeah. So we want to do our part. I think we want to remain in a posture of a willingness. So I think in that case, what we need to do is remain willing when the other party is ready.
Yeah.
Because I think the two passages that come to mind of what the Christian ought to be doing is one from the Beatitudes. Blessed are the peacemakers. Not blessed are the ones who can prove their point, or not blessed are the ones who can show how everybody else is wrong, or the courageous ones who can just tell people what's on their mind. And then secondly, I think 2 Corinthians 5, where Paul says we've been given the ministry of reconciliation. That has to guide. That has to be the end. If that's not the end, then we're doing the wrong thing.
Yeah. I think that's good. And I really learned this principle very early in my born again life. I got married in 2001, and it was some of the greatest advice that one of the pastors that I co-pastored Lifeline Bible Fellowship with, a guy named Calvin Clark, Pastor Clark. And he really helped me understand this, because like I shared with you guys at the beginning of this podcast, is that I really wrestled with the idea of black and white between me and Angie and all that. And I just remember having to go and talk to her dad and ask for her dad's hand in marriage. Yeah. Now you got to understand, Dad was not with it at all. Yeah. I mean, he was like, totally against it. And so like for me, like I was literally scared. Like I'm about to go ask this man for his daughter's hand in marriage. And Angie was thinking like, my dad has a lot of guns. He doesn't like this, and I thought he was going to like literally shoot me. Yeah. Right. And so there was this fear that I had. So I went in and I was just talking to him. And I remember talking to him about that. And I remember making the statement. I said, listen, right, after he said that he was against interracial marriages because of the kids and just the impact and all those things. And I said, well, I just want you to know. And I was like, I'm going to marry your daughter, but there's two things. If you never, ever accept me, just know that I'm never going to keep your daughter from you, nor am I ever going to keep my kids, from seeing you. Like, it's not going to be choose me or choose them, because you're her dad. You will be their granddad, in terms of their, your identity. And I'm not going to be able to keep it. And so, and it came through the words of Pastor Clark saying, always, the Christian's response is always to be reconciled. Yeah. I could have went in there and sought justice, but at the end I went to seek reconciliation, and I went to speak truth to him that I am going to marry your daughter, but I'm not. But I'm always going to leave the door open for reconciliation. And I think that's a critical thing and a critical piece that we have to have, because the bottom line is, I told him, I was like, the bottom line is, you have certain stereotypes about me as an African-American male because you saw Boys in the Hood, Colors. I don't know what you saw, the news. I don't know what you saw. So you have these stereotypes. But I said, I have the same stereotypes.
Yeah, that's good.
Against you, because, you like NASCAR, you kind of work, like you said you can't dance. You know what I mean? That's, but I have the same stereotypes about it. And so that's the thing that I had. And I think we have to, as believers, always have to have the posture of reconciliation. If that makes us look weak, it's only because we think Christ is weak, because that is his heart. And so I just think that's a critical posture that we have to understand.
I think one of the things that I've often noted about culture, and I don't know if this is a cultural shift, but a lot of times I think when you see people just kind of living their day-to-day lives, I think one of the things that I feel is lost in our culture is the thought that, I could be wrong here. I don't often see, even at times when you're having conversations, whether it's about the gospel, whether it's about politics, whether it's about socioeconomic issues, I don't remember. I feel like we're living in an age where people are not willing to reevaluate. It's like, that's my truth. You got your truth. Even if I'm giving you a particular argument, it's well thought out. There's, I think what we've lost a little bit in our culture is that ability to say, oh, well, like, you've given me some things to think about. Maybe we'll have a second conversation. So I think it talks a little bit, I think what you even kind of mentioned of you, both of you all, of just kind of this process. That's why relationship and those things are important, because we just realize that people won't necessarily reach the conclusions that we want right there. And so I'm sure if you talked about your father-in-law, there's probably been a process of his growth. But had you cut that off and just said, look, brother, if you ain't with it, and never talk to him again, and to allow him just to see your life, to see your commitments, to see your love for Angie, to see the way that you shepherd your house, to see the way that you lead your church, So I think that's the hard thing with us.
And I think the beautiful thing about the story is that is just exactly what you're saying. It's been a process. You know, he wasn't a believer, a professing believer at the time. He is now a professing believer. Awesome. Yeah. He has come to know the Lord, and he oftentimes refers back to that moment, that time. You know, and it's so interesting because, you know what's interesting? I didn't all of a sudden start liking NASCAR, or he didn't all of a sudden like doing the things that I do. But the thing is, it's like it's always fun to see as we come together. Yeah. Like I'm like, hey man, how's Daryl Earnhardt Jr. doing? And I'm like, I pull out like my one example that I know, and then, you know, trying to engage him in his world, and he does the same thing, you know, in my world. And it's just kind of like, but it's just like that idea of the pursuit of reconciliation, and it's a beautiful picture of that. And you know, and I think that it is a beautiful picture. And I think when we run to the tension of injustice, but we don't run to the tension of injustice with reconciliation, it leaves someone bitter, you know. Yeah. And that's why Jesus said it in Matthew 18, you know, when he was talking about, when Peter was asking him, how many times? 7 times? No, he said 70 times 7. Yeah. As much as we can do, be at peace with all men. We are always to have a posture in our heart for reconciliation. You know, and I think about this idea of both acceptance and repentance leads to true reconciliation, right? Acceptance and repentance, because, and this is, I kind of think about these kind of 3 categories that's illustrated in the Matthew 18 passage. One, you can have a person forgive someone who did not ask for it, you know, which basically frees the offended, right? Or you can have a person not forgive someone who is asking for it, which frees the offender, right? And that's what you're talking about, be at peace with all men. Or the third one is you can only have true reconciliation when there is both acceptance and repentance. You know, it's when we're wrestling with that, you know, that tension between the two. Because if you look at that Matthew 18 passage of the king who forgives this guy of great sin, and then later on that, you know, and the guy is forgiven, but then that guy who then sees someone else who owes him something, and he says, put him in jail. He missed it. He said he missed the whole point. Yeah. And what's interesting about that passage is the king hears of the news, and then he says, didn't you know you were forgiven much?
That's good.
How much more you need to be forgiving this person? And then what does the king do? He puts the guy back in prison. Yeah. So it's really the one who was unwilling to forgive is the one who ends up locked up behind bars.
That's good.
You know, and I think our unwillingness to really forgive, justified or not, is when we are the ones that are encaged with our own inability to forgive. Right. And I think that's why it's so critical that we process through and understand that.
And I think lastly, man, I think that the position that you're describing is uniquely Christian.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any other way around it, that what informs the last part of your statement is we've been forgiven much.
Yeah. We've been forgiven much, so we have to forgive others. And I think that those implications not only deals with race issues and things, because we're seeing a more and more influx of people in our body, in our churches, that are, you know, fall into some grievous sins. The offense that many of us, you know, that are having beef between brothers and sisters and all those things. And we have to basically embody what true reconciliation is that we got to pursue justice, but we have to pursue it with a heart of reconciliation. So, yeah, man, I just pray that God's grace would be on us, because this is not something that we can do in the flesh, you know, in the natural. It's something that we got to do. We need a supernatural act of God
possible.
To move through. So, all right, brothers, appreciate you.
All right. See you in a little bit.